Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the Director of Mental Health Awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. I'm going to introduce my guest to you today, Catherine Bennett. Catherine, hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you here. We've had a good time already just chatting, so this is I'm excited
No big
for this
deal.
podcast.
Yeah, me too.
Exactly. Let me tell you a little bit about Catherine. Catherine is the executive editor of Utah Business. While she has a print journalism degree, she launched her career in marketing as a global communications leader, which included managing a team of 10 translators. Then she began her entrepreneurship journey, spinning up Backpack Marketing, a marketing agency for small businesses. Next, she pivoted into her first executive marketing role with a company that had ties to Utah manufacturing, aerospace, health sciences, and more. She has been a podcast host, business and brand strategist, and has written marketing copy for more than 50 local and national companies. Away from her desk, she's a mom of 3 and a lover of nature, nonfiction, and travel. Nonfiction.
That
Okay.
pretty much sums up. Yeah,
Okay,
it's very
so
specific.
what's your like a specific type of nonfiction, like historical nonfiction, or
I love creative nonfiction. So
Okay.
if you can take something that's real but make it sound like it's fiction. So with the embellishing, with the I just find that I get so much more roped into stories when I know that they've happened.
oh, okay, yeah.
And so so historical nonfiction, absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if I'm learning something new, if it's something that I can see real life in,
yeah, yeah.
I'm about it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
One of our sons loves historical nonfiction, and my wife and I went to Washington, D.C., and he lives out on the East Coast. So he came up and was with us for a few days and just loved it. We went to Gettysburg, and he was telling us all these stories, and we found a Gettysburg battlefield where my wife's, I think, like third great grandpa probably would have died. We could find the actual field where he probably died. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think Malcolm Gladwell's a good, and that's not necessarily creative nonfiction, but it weaves story, like there's bigger concepts, right?
right.
And it weaves stories kind of throughout to kind of understand what he's trying to
Because it was all
display.
real too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they lived lives like us, right? And even though
Yeah,
it
of
was like
course.
some sort of sterilized version on paper, they had their ups and downs and everything. So
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So tell me about just any interest in mental health, like maybe your own personal mental health journey, or I know you sent me some stuff about this that I didn't read in your bio, but and you can talk about that or not. It's up to you.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like it's a good time in life to be just an open book. And I think
Love
it's
it.
so important for people who have reached a point of success in their careers, life, whatever success means to you.
Right.
That doesn't just mean one thing, but to show, because I think there's a portrayal of me, right, of maybe who I am in my career to people who don't know me. And to know
like
the
that bio, you know,
right,
that-
and to know the backstory,
Right.
like to know what the fight was throughout. So I'm totally open. I think there's 2 parts to my mental health journey. One is long. It was arduous. I would say it's not over. When I was about 15 years old, I was in a place that I didn't realize was a really negative place at the time, but decided to kind of engage in some eating disorder behaviors, which is actually just so much more common than,
Yes.
and most people won't admit that that's something that's part of their day to day, because it feels really uncomfortable still. I think we've tackled or tried and are still trying to tackle depression and some
Right.
of these other things, but it's like we've done some work and have accept that a little bit more than we have in the past, where I think eating disorders feel still really taboo.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, because it results in thinness, and that's the most amazing thing
And
ever,
it's
right? I
something-
mean, that is
it
as far as
carries
society
deep-
feels.
yeah, it carries deep shame,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's easier to just not because
Right.
of those heavy feelings. So I think it's all around us, and but we don't identify it. We're not going to call ourselves out for it,
Right,
right?
right.
And but it really is all around us. So I was 16, and obviously your brain is like all over the
Right.
place. It's rewiring. You can't
Half-cooked.
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah, half cooked, truly.
Yes.
So you have someone. Growing up, I definitely had parents who expected their kids to be high achievers, and honestly were incredible parents. There's absolutely no shade in this conversation toward the way that I was brought up. I think it was the perfect storm. It was of my personality, there was definitely a lot of diet culture in my family and in the world, right?
Of course, yeah.
It was
And still
everywhere.
is, yeah,
and so
yeah.
I really grew up with this real belief that if I could control the way that I looked, I would be successful long term. And so when I started to feel like I wasn't as in control, right? You're like going through puberty, all these things are happening, and you kind of like don't recognize yourself. It's not a surprise to me that so many women, and I mean men too, but
Right.
especially like teenage girls go through this type of a thing, in hindsight. But it took me about 10 years to get out of. I went to treatment in between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, was somehow, and I think what's amazing is I was somehow able to continue to function and graduate and actually achieve. And I think that that's what brought me out of it, was the perseverance of still living and having something to live for. So that, that kept me wanting to keep trying, because it was, I think also, I mean, I have a religious background too. And so you kind of learn these things, like you trying to achieve being the perfect person. I think a lot of Utahns relate to this. I'm still like a very faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I think there was this deep shame of like, I'm supposed to make a mistake and then be better.
Right. Right.
And the next day recover and say, I'm not going to do that ever again. And I kept doing it and doing it for 10 years. And not that it's this like a sin necessarily, but I felt like it was.
Well, sure. It feels
right.
wrong.
It's wrong. It's
Yeah.
something you shouldn't do. And it was so misunderstood by the people around me. It was so out of left field and out of character for me that I think there was definitely in my senior year of high school, it was kind of like the perception of the people around me was that I had ruined my own life, where I felt trapped in my own life. So I guess that's kind of part one of my mental health journey. And then the second half is once things started to, I kind of got a handle on it. I was going through a time in my life where I was having children. I was starting my family. And at the same time, my husband decided to leave his job and go back to school full time. So we had a 2-year-old, a newborn, and no income. And I had a job where I felt like the corporate world just wasn't playing, the job that I had, while I loved it, it wasn't set up for me to succeed as a mom.
At that season, yeah.
Yes. And so luckily I was also in graduate school at the time, and it just kind of came together, and I had a potential like first client pop up, and I thought, oh, I can try this path. But then there was this kind of fire under my butt to actually buckle down and figure it out because of our the financial situation. I didn't want to go into any debt.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to pay off that school while also saving for a house. It was kind of like, you're doing this, girl. But in that, right, it's incredibly isolating.
Yeah.
You're going through all the emotions of like pregnancy and having children, and the weight in addition. It felt incredibly heavy at the time. It felt like no one could quite understand maybe where I was. I luckily did find some women who did understand, and were supportive, but I had to check myself a lot in those years and make sure I was being vocal and speaking about finding ways to connect with other people so that I wasn't isolated. But could have easily kind of slipped down that slope. But I think just the entrepreneurial journey, which I think is what, why this is such a topic, right, for Silicon Slopes and the greater business community is, it's easy to feel isolated, especially when things aren't going well, and you feel like it's all your fault. And anyway, so I've experienced that side of it too.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. It's amazing. And one of the challenges that many entrepreneurs have is that they're so good at so many things. I call it like the curse of the highly competent. And you just feel like you can do anything, because you've been successful at almost everything you've done. But everyone reaches their breaking point someplace. And I loved your description, like when you're talking about, like in high school and college, and how while still struggling with the eating disorder issues, but still having this drive to perform and to do well. So I think that combination, like you said, that's what kind of preserved you, at the same time seeking help, right? You didn't just do it all on your own and say, okay, I can just beat this by myself, because you probably couldn't when you hadn't, right, in 10 years.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
You had been unsuccessful at managing it. But once you said, okay, I'm going to talk to people who know more about this than I do, and who have helped many, many people that are in similar situations, and learn from them while still trying to move forward in your life, that probably just accelerated all that. So
and the accountability piece you can't
Yes.
underestimate, because if you're not talking to someone, right, they're not going to hold you accountable to making the change. I certainly wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was maybe had just turned 18, or I was about to turn 18, and finally found, and I can't speak enough to finding the right help for you, because I think therapists, and this is from the world of Catherine, they come with their own like perspectives and histories and stories.
I second that.
Yeah. And so if it's not aligned with you, it doesn't work. And so we went through quite a few people before I found one that I felt like actually understood me and could speak to me in the way that I needed to be spoken to, and was the one that said, you need to go to treatment, like, and was able to bring that out of me and get me committed to doing that and fully on board myself. And I wish that it had all been like, it all resolved itself after, but that was the beginning. Like I was fully stuck before that. And after that, I felt like there was light, at least. So
one of the most fascinating bits of research that I studied in graduate school, and maybe it's changed, it's been 30 years, but they did this meta-analysis of all of what was effective in counseling. They tried to figure out what are the things that actually predict positive outcomes. They studied everything from theoretical orientation to number of visits to gender of counselor, all these things. They found one thing that consistently predicted good outcomes, and it was if the person had a good relationship with their counselor. That was it.
That's so real.
That was it. And then if they had a poor relationship or a neutral relationship, then they'd either stay the same or get worse.
Yeah.
And so I tell people that all the time. They say, well, who should I go to? I say, go to someone that you like. Go to someone that kind of fits your personality and that you feel comfortable with, because we seem to get the best outcomes from
And when I finally had the most success is when I moved to Utah. So I had therapists. I grew up in Nevada, so it was in the Reno area. Then I was pretty off and on through college. Like it was rocky. It was really rocky. You don't really have the resources to pay, and it's easy to hide, when you're kind of on your own. And so it was just kind of functioning. And then I got married, which is the greatest, accountability that you can possibly have. But I married someone
harder to hide.
Yeah, but I married someone who knew, like he was fully like, I will cry about, like, he was the first person that was like, this is a layer on top of you that we can, like, I'm here for it. I don't see it as like being a defect.
Sure.
It's just something like, love you enough to work through it with you. And I'm so grateful for that. But we did find someone, I was maybe 24, in Orem, and she was able to speak to me like spiritually as well as in some other ways, and that was effective for me. And actually was the first person I'd met with that validated me. And that actually was the most healing thing that has ever happened to me on that journey. Is she was the first person after 9 or 8 years or something that said, she heard me out, she heard my story, kind of the way that I was brought up, things that I believed and thought. And she said, is there any wonder how this happened to you? It's all lining up.
Right.
And so it was suddenly like, not that I'm off the hook for making the decisions that I made. I could have chose not to, but at the same time, it did give, it was like, you're not bad.
They were contributing factors to your choices.
Yes,
for
and
sure.
you at that moment thought this was the solution for you in your young,
with your
like
half-cooked brain.
with a half-cooked brain
Right.
who couldn't see the future and didn't understand the ramifications of those behaviors over time.
Yeah.
So that was incredibly healing, and was kind of the beginning of me being able to let go of this control that I felt like I needed to have.
I love that idea of validation, and like you said, how working with that woman, you felt validated. I think that the rising generation is looking for that more than ever. They want to feel like people see them. They want to feel like that they're okay the way they are. Yeah. And they're bringing that to work, right? Now they're bringing that to the employment setting. What do you think? Well, and older generations, I think, like maybe my dad's generation or somewhere in between there, me and my dad, they're going to say, no, you tough through it like we did. You don't come to work to get coddled. You don't come to work to get validated.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the same anymore. I think that maybe needs to change a little bit. Just you and, as an executive, how do you see that? Because you got people that are working for you, needing to do things.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me about that.
And I think I'm probably more of an in-between on that of like, I want to understand you and hear you out. And and see, the world from your lens, so I can get on, so that I can show up for you the way that as a leader, as a manager, whoever that person is. But on the other end, I think that there are times I've seen, even just personally, that where it just goes too far, and you're like, we still need you to perform.
Yes.
So how do we balance performance with empathy and understanding? And I don't even know if empathy is the right word, but definitely understanding and kindness.
Yes.
So I think it's tricky. I think it's a tricky balance. However, we do have a number of people in this demographic that are on the Utah business team, and kind of we have our first interns even, right? And so it's been really good to learn and perceive what they need.
Yeah.
That's different. And I think it's so simple, but just it all starts with like open communication from day one. Like, tell me about
Asking
you.
questions, being curious, right?
Being so curious and really knowing them on like multiple layers, not just tell me what you like to do and tell me, right? Like, what motivates you? What drives you? What would make you feel like, as you're going to bed at night, that you had a successful day? Like, what does that look like to you? And then I think from a business perspective, you have to have your crap together from a systems perspective, right? To not overwork people to the point. And that's like a business strategy and systems problem. I know sometimes it's just, you can't avoid it. It feels that way anyway, as a startup, as a growing company, and you're trying to keep up, and like, that's absolutely a reality. But if you can prevent the burnout, right, I think that's really at the core of a lot of what people are just looking for, is make sure you help me protect my time and what matters to me.
Yeah.
And that comes down to being a smart business owner. And I actually recently interviewed the CEO founder of LiveView Technologies, LVT. And I was fascinated to see that it took him 10 plus years to get to a point where he felt like this is taking off. Like, this isn't such a grind anymore. I think it's probably always a grind because they're growing and doing really well. But he made a promise to himself at the beginning that he would prioritize his family. He wouldn't bring work home. And I think that's probably partially why it took a little longer.
Sure.
But overall, life was more sustainable. Right. And so I think that's something to consider as we grow and pivot. And obviously, like, but there's this other weight of, you have to make money. Like, you have to make the right amount of money. Maybe it's not going to be exponential growth right away, but you have to make, performance versus life. It's always going to be tricky. And I think as long as everyone's transparent, open, we're checking each other, there's really good teamwork and synergy there, that it can be figured out. But it starts with emotional intelligence.
I agree. And I love the balance that you described there, because I think that is the right place. We tend to vacillate or oscillate so much between the extremes. We never spend any time in this lovely place in the middle. We're always in the extremes. So either we're like, toughen up, or on the other side, like, oh, everything's fine, and I'll just keep paying you even though you don't do anything. We can't do that either, right?
No.
There's a place in the middle. We have to be. I think that most people, when they come to work, they want to do well.
Yes.
They got that job on purpose, right? They went there and applied for that position, expecting to work and do something and earn money and feel good about it. And of course, there are sometimes things that might get in the way of that. But like you said, if they feel like you understand them, then I think that drives them to better performance as well. And if there have to be a few accommodations here or there, that's fantastic, and we can do that as needed. But I think most people just want to feel like you're listening, and that they're valued, and that you understand that maybe they had a bad day, or maybe they have bad days and their performance is going to be a little lower that day. And that's okay, because you bounce back tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you can visually see the actionable steps someone's taking toward accommodating you, it's not just, oh, I'm listening, that you can see the manifestation of that listening in whatever that, I guess for me, like, I have accommodations. I have a boss who accommodates me by saying, I feel like I don't have enough PTO, but can we make, and not necessarily that's a blanket statement. It all works out. But there are times like, I want to go to my son's preschool field trip. He's my last son, like my last boy, and I want to be there for that. That matters to me. And it's not convenient that morning for me to ditch the meetings that I have, but he helps me protect that time. Or if I'm saying I'm feeling stretched this week, I've been gone every day, my family's feeling it, and I would, it would mean a lot for me to work from home. I'd be more productive and for my family and for, in my role. He's like, do what's best for your family, So I am inconveniencing some people in doing that, but overall, like I will stick around, right, so much longer in my role, and that's for everyone on my team. They're going to stick around knowing that the people around them are protecting them and what matters the most to them.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I love that where you're at right now, because just by your own description, you grew up in probably a pretty conservative mindset, and
Sure did.
and here you are, an entrepreneurial woman, which is different than may have been expected, exactly.
And I've loved the mindset shift too, because I think we went from traditional kind of wife or woman roles in the home to the boss babe movement, which I kind of hated, if I'm being completely just the terminology and everything. And I just thought, man, I'm both. I mean,
right.
I love being that person in my home, and I love being a leader outside of my home. Like those are, it's not like we're way, I'm right in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we almost always are.
We
right?
always are. Yes. I'm like, what are we
or
doing?
Where we're most comfortable, right? But for whatever reason, we just feel compelled to go to these extremes.
Or at least from a messaging standpoint, or like adopt one, or like a persona.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons that we find ourselves in the extremes is because the middle requires a lot more nuance, and it requires a lot more flexible thinking. And I think just you personally, your own mental health journey, I think has probably helped you with that flexible thinking, because especially in eating disorders, there's so much extreme there, and so learning to think differently about that, and learning to think like, okay, it's okay to have, a little bit of this, or, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I do. I absolutely do.
I think that change in that increased flexible thinking has put you in a position where you can do that right now, where you can say, look, I can be I don't like the word boss baby either. What's a better word for that? I can be the competent female executive, or whatever you want to talk about.
I guess for me, I've been critical of even just saying that female in there.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like, there's never a time when a man would say, I'm a male executive.
That's so true.
But at the same time, we've had to have that messaging to make like that, help that group rise a little bit. But at the same time, I'm like, I wonder when we're not quite there yet to step away from doing that. But
clearly, because I just said it.
No, but it's been important, like for our male allies,
sure,
and stuff,
yeah,
to call out that, and I know we've seen the numbers of where women are in pay gap and just all these statistics. So obviously, we still need to be clear about who we're talking about and who we're trying to help.
But no, you're absolutely right. It's right. You can be a leader and a parent, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, absolutely at the same time.
Yeah, men do it every day.
So true. It's so true. I look at this question, and you've already exemplified this so much, but there is, in leadership, there's just this feeling of, like I said, having to be perfect and not being able to show your flaws and stuff. But would you agree that the best leaders are the ones that do show that where people can just kind of identify with them? And
yeah,
they're like,
absolutely. And laugh about it too,
yes,
right? Like, because we can all relate. We might not all be talking about it. And I have thought about, how does it help my personal brand or Utah Business's brand to be a little more elusive, to be like a little more hard to figure out, mysterious. I don't know. I think there's strategy. I think there's strategy there.
Sure.
I do, but I also it's been so cool to see the feedback in getting this role, because it's been about 6 months now of Utah Business feels warm. Like there's something that feels warmer about it. And I hope it's because it feels more inclusive and that we continue to work. And I think it's always been that way, but obviously it's Utah Business. We're representing the number one economy in the country currently. And there's a lot of like more masculine, energy and stories. And that's so important. That's a massive part of what we do. And then balancing it with like, we want you to feel welcome here, and we want you to be included. We want to tell your stories, small businesses, aerospace, like just across the map. So it's been interesting to figure out how I can best show up. And I found that the more I am just myself, credible, honest,
Yeah.
and a little weird and a little quirky, and hopefully as authentic and as open as I can be, that's the best place that I can be.
I think people are craving authenticity right now.
Yeah.
I think, social media and all these things have created a place where it just, so much of it doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
And especially now with AI and oh my heavens, there's full on apps where nothing's real.
Absolutely.
Literally everything is fake on that, looks real, but it's not real. And what are we feeding ourselves? This is terrible,
Oh, I know.
We need that realness, that authenticity. And I think that it is so welcome. I think it's a breath of fresh air to anyone who comes in. So lean into that. Whatever brand you decide, make sure authenticity is a pillar of that.
Yeah. Well, and I think no matter what, I hopefully can come off as being an authority and credible. I think I can straddle both those lines, but it has been wonderful. Like all of my connections, my meaningful connections in the community have come from me sharing. I think just last week I shared that I spent 3 hours scrubbing all of my slacks over the bathtub because I put tinted lip balm in my pocket. And it was like $500 worth of pants. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So it's just like between all like the podcasts and the events and the, publishing the magazine, that's what's happening.
Right.
That's what's happening to all of us. We're getting crap all over, our pants. and like, let's all, come to terms over that. We have that in common.
Right.
And it brings us close. It brings us together, helps us support each other more. And I think it helps us be more ambitious, honestly, because if you're allowed to show up in all of your chaos too, then you keep showing up.
Yeah.
Right. And you keep doing the hard work. So,
well, I think that there's this fallacy that authenticity somehow means just the self-deprecation and just acknowledging all our flaws and stuff. But I think it can be authentic, just like you said, you want to be the authority as well. And of course you are. All the things that you're amazing at, you are amazing at, period.
Yeah. And everyone should embrace that.
Exactly. And that exists independent of the fact that you might be a little forgetful taking the lip balm out of your pants, right?
That will continue to happen for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Right. But both those things happen at the same time. And just because a person might struggle in one area does not mean they're not excellent in another area. And so, but that's that flexible thinking again, getting back to being able to understand all of that together. And so I think we can be truly authentic, acknowledge our greatness, admit our weakness at the same time. And then, I don't know,
I completely agree. And I think it's so important to remember, well, when we're treating other people, because we always treat other people better than we treat ourselves. Yeah. So if I'm going to be flexible with someone else and say, oh, like, that's okay, that happens, and pitch in and try to fix it or help, that I should give myself that same kind of grace, because they would do that for me.
Right. Yeah.
But I feel like it's something we all have to be in on this together. And we have to trust that other people are going to give us that space too, to be imperfect. And so I feel like the more vocal I can be about what I'm messing up, and not that, there's a line there. I don't need there's a point where it's not helpful.
Yeah, with all your flaws. Yeah, right.
There's a point where that's not really helpful anymore. But to let people in a little bit and give permission for them to feel safe around you.
Yeah. We need to have one big giant Zoom meeting with everyone in the world. And on the count of 3, we just drop our pretenses, and just say,
seriously.
And like you said, we don't have to air all the dirty laundry, but just to say, this is me, and this is what I'm great at, and this is what I'm not so great at. And I think that the collective sigh of relief would be amazing.
And I have to say, it's still really challenging for me to, in this current job, because this is different than anything I've done before this. I mean, it's combining a bunch of skills from 10 to 15 years of my life all together. But there are some elements of it that I'm just not good at. And it's all around like process. I don't think linearly. I have big ideas and then I like work my way back. And I know that about myself. And so I'm really upfront, but there are some moments where I'm like, I wish I was good at that and that I could tell you that I was going to be good at that. And I can pretend to be. My energy doesn't flow that way.
Right.
And it's okay. But I still feel uncomfortable showing up in these meetings where I know that's the main need.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let's find who can do that better than me, which of course is like leadership 101.
Right.
But it does still, like, it makes me feel uncomfortable knowing that I can't be all the things, but I don't need to be. And then, what would that do for the other people around me? Like, we need to feel united in what we're good at.
Well, this has been a lovely what I consider authentic conversation with you, Catherine.
I'm glad you feel that way.
I do. I appreciate your willingness to share just about your past and just to talk about, the difficulties and the triumphs and all that. I think you're a great example to those that you're leading, and they're fortunate to have you. So thanks for coming in today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
And thanks everyone for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.